Fellow travelers, imagine this. You wake up in a small guesthouse room in Chiang Mai. Your wallet's empty. Your ATM card's gone. And the woman who once called you "my love" has vanished, along with your entire retirement savings. She said she loved you for your heart, not your money. Now you sit there, staring at the wall, wondering, was it love, or a trap you walked into yourself? Broken heart, this isn't just a sad story. It's a brutal warning about how paradise in Thailand can turn into hell with one mistake: trusting too soon. Backhand index pointing right. Don't forget to hit like, friends. Because what you're about to hear might just save your future. Before Thailand, Peter's life was quiet, almost too quiet. He was 58, a retired schoolteacher from Melbourne, Australia. For over 3 decades, he taught literature and history to high school students. The kind of man who spent his evenings reading poetry instead of watching football, who believed that good manners and kindness could still change the world. But life, as it often does, had other plans. After 30 years of marriage, his wife left. Not for another man, but for freedom. She said she was done being invisible. Their 2 grown children moved overseas, busy with careers and families of their own. The house that once echoed with laughter became a museum of memories. Photos on the walls, empty chairs, and one half of the bed that stayed cold every night. Retirement wasn't the golden dream Peter imagined. It was isolation. He woke up without purpose, made coffee for one, and spent hours scrolling through Facebook, watching old colleagues travel, remarry, or post pictures of grandchildren. He envied their joy, even if he never said it aloud. Then, one day, an ad appeared on his screen. Live better for less, retire in Thailand. The image showed golden beaches, smiling faces, a bowl of steaming pad thai. Peter clicked. And for the first time in years, he felt something stir, curiosity, maybe even hope. He spent days watching YouTube videos from other retirees. Men in their 50s and 60s talking about low living costs, beautiful weather, and women who still appreciated older men. They spoke about Thailand like it was a cure, for loneliness, for regret, for the feeling of being forgotten. One night, after a glass too many of red wine, Peter joined a few Facebook expat groups. That's when he saw the photos: couples smiling on scooters, sunsets over the mountains, older men with young Thai women looking impossibly happy. He didn't want a bar girl. He told himself that clearly. He wanted something real. A connection. Companionship. Someone who could see the man behind the wrinkles, the man who still believed in love stories. He started chatting with expats online. Some were cynical. Some bragged. But one comment stuck with him. Thailand doesn't judge you for getting old, it makes you feel alive again. That line haunted him. Peter sold his car, rented out his house, and booked a one-way flight to Chiang Mai. Friends called him brave. His daughter called him reckless. But Peter smiled and said, "I'm not running away. I'm just starting fresh." He didn't know it yet, but that single decision would change the rest of his life. When the plane lifted off from Melbourne, Peter looked out the window, watching the coastline shrink beneath the clouds. He whispered to himself, "Maybe this time, I'll get it right." He carried with him 2 suitcases, one filled with clothes, the other with memories, old wedding photos, teaching certificates, a few framed poems from his students. But what he didn't realize was that he also carried something far heavier: his loneliness. And in Thailand, loneliness is currency. Someone will always know how to spend it. By the time Peter landed in Chiang Mai, he had convinced himself that this was the beginning of something beautiful, the second act of a life that had lost its spark. He didn't yet know the rules of this new world, the smiles that meant more than they seemed, or the way love could be both sincere and strategic at the same time. All he knew was that he was ready to fall in love again. But as we'll soon see, friends, Thailand doesn't always give you what you want. Sometimes, it gives you what you need to learn the hard way. When Peter's plane touched down at Chiang Mai International Airport, it was late afternoon. The air outside was thick with humidity, the kind that clung to your skin like a second shirt, and yet, it smelled alive: grilled chicken from roadside stalls, frangipani flowers, and gasoline from the constant buzz of motorbikes. For the first time in years, Peter smiled without forcing it. He wasn't Mr. Clarkson, the teacher, anymore. He was just Peter, a man in a linen shirt and sandals, stepping into a world that promised peace, warmth, and maybe even love. Chiang Mai was nothing like Melbourne. The traffic moved like chaos disguised as rhythm. Monks walked barefoot in orange robes past tattooed tourists. Street vendors shouted in Thai while selling mango sticky rice beside temples that glowed in gold. Every sight felt like a new lesson, one he didn't have to grade. He checked into a small serviced apartment on Nimmenhamen Road. The owner, a cheerful woman named Dao, greeted him with jasmine tea and a bow. "Welcome, teacher," she said after hearing his background. "You will like Chiang Mai. Very calm. Very kind people." And she was right, at least in the beginning. Peter fell into a comfortable rhythm. He spent his mornings walking along the Ping River, watching the sunrise paint the water orange. He'd stop at a cafe where digital nomads tapped on laptops and order a cappuccino that cost a fraction of what he used to pay back home. In the afternoons, he joined a local expat group at a nearby pub, retired men from the UK, Germany, Canada, each with their own Thailand story. They swapped tips about visas, cheap condos, and, inevitably, women. "Stay away from the bar girls," one of them warned with a laugh. "They'll love you till payday." Another chimed in, "Find a good one, maybe from the countryside. Family-oriented. They're loyal." Peter listened but said little. He wasn't here to play games. He wanted something genuine, someone who'd hold his hand during the night markets, not just pour his drink. As the days turned into weeks, Thailand began to seep under his skin. He learned basic Thai phrases, "Sawas di krap," "Kop kun krap." He rented a small motorbike, even though it terrified him at first. He started writing again, poetry inspired by the smell of rain on temple roofs and the laughter of children chasing kites. Life was simple, affordable, and strangely healing. He called his daughter once a week, telling her, "You should see it here, love. People smile for no reason. Even the air feels lighter." But beneath the joy, there was a quiet vulnerability, a kind of openness that Thailand encourages in lonely men. Every smile feels like a possibility. Every conversation, a connection. And that's when he met her. It happened at a small coffee shop near the night bazaar. Peter had been reading a travel book when a woman's voice asked politely, "Excuse me, is this seat taken?" Her name was Lalida, 29 years old. A receptionist at a small hotel. A single mother with one son. She had warm brown eyes, hair tied neatly in a bun, and a shy way of speaking that made her seem different from the girls Peter had seen on dating apps. She told him she came from Lampong, that she worked hard to support her child, that she dreamed of opening her own spa one day. She didn't flirt. She listened. She asked questions. For Peter, it was like a switch had flipped. Here was a woman who didn't just see him as a foreigner, she saw him as a man. They met again the next day. And the next. Soon, Peter found himself rearranging his days around her schedule. Coffee turned into dinners, dinners into weekend trips. Lalida introduced him to her mother, who smiled shyly and served papaya salad while calling him Teacher Peter. He felt accepted, wanted, needed. For the first time in decades, Peter felt young again. The loneliness that had followed him from Melbourne seemed to evaporate in the Chiang Mai heat. Friends from the expat group teased him. "Careful, mate. That smile will cost you." But Peter just laughed. "Not every story ends in a scam," he said. He didn't realize yet how wrong he was. Because in Thailand, sometimes the most dangerous people don't stand under neon lights. They stand in daylight, holding your hand, whispering promises you want so badly to believe. And Lalida was about to teach Peter a lesson no classroom ever could. If you've ever been in love, you'll understand how easy it is to mistake comfort for destiny. That's exactly how Peter felt the night Lalida smiled at him across that coffee shop table. It started innocently, small conversations about travel, culture, and family. But from that first week, Peter felt something he hadn't felt in years: relevance. Someone cared about what he said, laughed at his old stories, and looked at him like he still mattered. Lalida was different. At least, that's what he told himself. She wasn't dressed like the bar girls near Loy Crow Road. She wore a simple blouse, no heavy makeup, no perfume that lingered too long. Her voice was soft, her manner shy. When she spoke about her son, a 5-year-old boy named Tun, her eyes softened in a way that melted Peter's defenses. She told him about growing up in a small village in Lampong, about her mother who still worked the rice fields, about how hard it was being a single mom in Thailand. "Foreigners think Thai life is easy," she said once. "But we work every day, from morning until night, just to survive." Peter nodded, touched. He admired her strength, or what he thought was strength. In truth, Lalita was clever. She knew exactly how to weave vulnerability into admiration. Not asking for sympathy, just planting seeds of empathy. Within weeks, they were meeting every day. She'd bring him fruit to his apartment, mangoes, papayas, small things wrapped in care. "Don't eat alone," she'd say with a smile. "Thai food is better when shared." They went to temples, fed fish at the river, and sat in quiet cafes where she taught him Thai phrases. She laughed when he mispronounced sabai sabai, and teased him gently, "Your accent's so cute, teacher." It was the kind of connection Peter thought only existed in movies. He began writing poems again, about second chances, about the warmth of foreign hearts, about how love could bloom even in late life. Then came the first test. One evening, Lalita invited Peter to meet her mother. The house was humble, wooden, slightly worn, surrounded by banana trees. Her mother greeted him with shy gratitude, serving spicy papaya salad and sticky rice while saying, "You good man, Peter. Take care, my daughter." It felt genuine. Too genuine. Later that night, Lalita whispered, "She likes you. She say you kind. She never say that to anyone before." Peter smiled, feeling honored, chosen. From that moment, his affection turned into commitment. He started paying for small things, school uniforms for her son, repairs for her motorbike, dinners when they went out. He didn't see it as helping. He saw it as love in action. In return, Lalita treated him like family. She cooked for him, washed his clothes, filled his fridge with Thai food. Their relationship deepened quickly. Too quickly. Within a month, she'd moved in. The first time she called him "my husband" in front of her friends, Peter's heart swelled. He didn't notice the glances they exchanged, or how easily she played the role. For Peter, it was everything he'd hoped for: love, companionship, purpose. For Lalita, it was something else entirely: opportunity. Still, to her credit, she didn't act greedy. Not yet. She built her story slowly. She told Peter about a dream, opening a small spa for tourists near Chiang Mai's old city. "I don't want easy money," she said. "I want future. I want something for my son." It sounded noble, responsible, the kind of dream that made Peter's heart ache with admiration. He told her, "If I can help, I will." And that's when it began, the slow, careful weaving of manipulation dressed as love. She introduced him to her cousin, who claimed to be a property agent. They talked about rental spaces, renovation costs, profit margins. Lalita never asked for money directly. She just let Peter volunteer. When he offered to cover the deposit, she hesitated just long enough to seem reluctant. "Are you sure?" she asked softly. And that was enough. Peter was already hooked. To his friends, he bragged about how lucky he was. "She's not like the others," he'd say over beers. "She's independent. She works hard. I think I might finally settle down." They warned him. They always do. But love, especially late in life, has a way of silencing good advice. And Lalita knew exactly how to keep him under her spell, with small acts of care, emotional honesty, and just enough distance to make him chase her affection. He thought she was his salvation. But she was only building the stage for his downfall. Because somewhere, behind those soft eyes and that gentle smile, Lalita had already made her decision. Peter wasn't her forever. He was her bridge. And soon, that bridge would lead straight into ruin. Let me tell you something about trust. It never breaks all at once. It cracks slowly, quietly, while love whispers that everything is fine. That's how Lalita worked. To Peter, she was still the perfect woman. Caring, attentive, humble. She cooked breakfast before he woke, pressed his shirts, packed lunch for him when he volunteered at a local English club. And every time she smiled up at him with those warm eyes, Peter's doubts melted like sugar in tea. She never asked for much. Not at first. Instead, she gave. She gave comfort, routine, and the illusion of belonging. Soon, Peter wasn't just in love, he was dependent. He loved how she made him feel needed. When she'd say, "You teach me English, I teach you Thai, we help each other," he felt like part of something meaningful again. That exchange, that balance, it became his new purpose. They began spending evenings watching Thai soap operas together. Peter didn't understand much of the dialogue, but he didn't need to. Lalita would translate every scene, sometimes resting her head on his shoulder, whispering, "So sad, right?" And Peter would nod, smiling like a teenager. Sometimes, late at night, she'd cry quietly, about her struggles, her ex-husband, her fear of being alone. "Men only use me," she'd say in broken English. "But you different." Peter believed her. What he didn't know was that this vulnerability was her most powerful tool. Each tear, each confession, each trembling "thank you," all of it built a stronger bond, a deeper illusion of intimacy. Peter began to see her pain as his responsibility. So when she mentioned her mother's high blood pressure and how the medication was too expensive, Peter didn't hesitate. He slipped a few thousand baht into her purse the next morning, saying gently, "For her medicine. Don't tell her it's from me." Lalita hugged him tightly. "You good man," she whispered. "My heart feel lucky." That phrase, "you good man," became her spell. Every time she said it, Peter's defenses lowered further. Every time she cried in his arms, he mistook manipulation for trust. Weeks turned into months. They started visiting temples together, taking photos that made them look like husband and wife. Lalita posted them online with captions in Thai that Peter couldn't read, phrases like, "finally safe," and "thank you, universe." Her friends began commenting hearts and blessings. Peter didn't notice that most of those friends were men. He was too busy falling deeper. Then came the next layer of control, family integration. Lalita's mother started calling Peter Luck, meaning son. Her little boy began calling him Papa Peter. They invited him to Lampong for a temple festival, where the neighbors whispered and smiled, assuming a wedding was near. Peter felt proud, respected. He'd become part of something again, a family, a purpose. But behind the warmth, Lalita was already testing his boundaries. It started small. "Can we borrow your scooter? My sister needs to go to work." Then bigger. "Can you pay the phone bill first? Salary late this month." Then sentimental. "If we marry later, I take care of you forever, okay? I just need to fix my debt before that." Each request came wrapped in emotion. Each excuse was softened by affection. Peter's rational mind, the same one that once graded essays and saw through teenage excuses, was gone. He wasn't thinking like a teacher anymore. He was thinking like a man terrified of losing love. And Lalita knew it. She began talking about their future. A small cafe together. A house in her hometown. Maybe even adopting her son officially. She said, "You don't need to be lonely anymore. We build something together." It was the sweetest lie Peter had ever heard. He started spending his savings on small investments, furniture, decorations, kitchen equipment for the future cafe. Lalita took photos, showed him receipts, and even brought him to see a small empty shop lot she claimed was the perfect place. Everything seemed so real, so sincere, so earned. But what Peter couldn't see was the invisible thread she was spinning, a web of emotional dependence. Because when Lalita cried, Peter rushed. When she smiled, Peter paid. And when she whispered, "I love you, teacher," with trembling lips, Peter believed her, with every piece of his aging heart. He told his expat friends, "She's the one. She's not after money. She's building a life with me." They nodded politely, too polite to say what they were really thinking. And then, one evening, after another quiet dinner at home, Lalita looked at him with tears in her eyes and said, "Peter, I don't know what I'd do without you." He smiled and kissed her forehead. Neither of them said what came next, but both understood the direction this story was heading. The line between love and manipulation was already gone. Peter just didn't see it yet. This is the moment where love starts to turn into a transaction, but you don't notice it when it's wrapped in care, in soft hands, and in the sound of someone calling you "my love." For Peter, that moment came one rainy evening in early July. The monsoon had rolled into Chiang Mai, and the streets outside their apartment shimmered with puddles. Peter sat on the balcony, sipping coffee, while Lolita folded laundry by the window. The smell of lemongrass filled the room, that calm, homely scent he'd grown to love. Then, her phone rang. She answered quickly, voice hushed, tone nervous. Peter couldn't understand the Thai, but he saw her face pale. When she hung up, she sat quietly for a moment. Then she whispered, "My mom, hospital again. High blood pressure. Need doctor." Peter's heart tightened. "Is she okay?" Lolita nodded faintly, but her eyes glistened. "I send money every month, but this month, I pay ton school already. I don't have enough." She didn't ask him for help. She just sighed, wiped her tears, and whispered, "It's okay. I'll find way." But that was all it took. Peter leaned forward, reaching for his wallet. "How much do you need?" She shook her head. No, I don't want you to think I use you. I handle it." "Lolita," he said gently, "your family. Let me help." After a few moments of protest, she finally accepted. It was only 5,000 baht, around $150. Nothing major. Just a small act of love. But that's how every story like this begins. Not with greed. With gratitude. The next morning, Lolita returned from sending the money to her mother. She brought Peter a small paper bag, homemade sticky rice and grilled pork. "For you," she said softly. "You always take care of me. I make something for your heart." Peter smiled. He didn't see it as payment. He saw it as love returned. In fact, it made him feel closer to her. That night, he told her, "I want you to know something. You never have to worry when you're with me." Lolita hugged him, tears in her eyes. "You make me feel safe. No man ever make me feel that before." The script was working perfectly. Weeks passed. The emergency faded, but new ones appeared, small at first. A broken scooter tire. Her son's school trip. A friend who didn't pay back a loan. Each problem came with the same tone of embarrassment, the same soft hesitation, and the same final acceptance after Peter offered to help. "Just this once," she'd say. And every time, she made sure to repay him emotionally. A home-cooked dinner, a long night of affection, or a tearful thank you. Soon, these requests became part of their rhythm. Peter began setting aside money for family matters. He didn't even think of it as giving anymore. It was just what love did. Until one afternoon, she brought up something different, something bigger. They were sitting in a small restaurant overlooking Doi Suthep. The light was golden, and Peter had just finished reading her one of his old poems. Lolita was quiet for a while, then she sighed. "I want to tell you something," she began. "But I scared." Peter put down his glass. "You can tell me anything." She hesitated, eyes glistening. "My ex-husband, he still send message. He say he want to take ton. He say because I poor, I can't give my son good life." Her voice trembled. "He has money. He can go to court. I don't know what to do." Peter felt a surge of anger. "He can't take your child. You're a great mother." She nodded, crying softly. "But in Thailand, money is power. If he has lawyer, I lose." He reached for her hand. "What do you need? I'll help you fight this." She resisted, just long enough to make it look real. "No, you already do too much. I can't." "How much?" he insisted. Finally, she whispered, "Maybe 20,000 baht. For lawyer to prepare paper. Just to protect my son." He transferred it that night. And when the money went through, Lolita cried. Real or not, Peter couldn't tell anymore. She wrapped her arms around him and whispered, "No man ever protect me like you. You my hero." It was intoxicating. To a man who'd spent years being invisible, those words were gold. He didn't notice how perfectly timed each crisis was. He didn't notice that every story, the hospital, the tire, the lawyer, came right after a deep emotional moment. All he saw was a woman who made him feel alive. And so, the giving continued. A week later, she suggested they start a small savings fund together. "For our cafe dream," she said, smiling shyly. "We both put money, 50-50. Peter agreed instantly. But somehow, every time she was supposed to contribute, something came up: her mother's health, her son's tuition, her friend's accident. Peter didn't mind. Because love, as he saw it, wasn't about keeping score. It was about trust. And in trusting Lolita completely, he'd already stepped onto the path that would strip him of everything. Not just his savings, but his pride, his confidence, and his belief that love could ever be simple again. He just didn't know it yet. This is where most men fall the hardest. Not when they're scammed for a few thousand baht, but when they start believing they're investing in love. And that's exactly where Peter's story took a turn. By the end of the year, Peter and Lolita were living like a married couple. She called him husband in front of friends, introduced him as family, and even added his photo to her social media, the ultimate symbol of trust. To the untrained eye, everything looked perfect. But to those who've seen enough of Thailand's underbelly, it was clear. Peter had entered the investment phase, the most dangerous stage of any romance scam. It began with a dream they had shared for months, the cafe idea. Lolita had planted that seed early, but now it was time to make it grow. One afternoon, while they were walking through the old city, she pointed at a narrow shopfront between a tourist hostel and a laundry. "This one," she said softly. "Perfect for small cafe. We sell coffee, smoothie, Thai food. Tourists come here every day." Peter looked around. The spot was ideal, lots of foot traffic, cozy corner, beautiful view of the temple across the street. He could almost see it already, Peter and Lolita's cafe. He smiled. "Let's do it." Lolita hesitated. "Really?" "Yes," he said. "We can make it happen. I've got some savings left, and I can invest in something meaningful." She hugged him, whispering, "I don't deserve you." That night, Peter pulled up spreadsheets, ran cost estimates, even contacted a contractor recommended by one of Lolita's friends. Everything looked legitimate. The contract, the paperwork, the details. It wasn't until later that he would realize the documents were all part of a script, a professional setup used by scammers who preyed on foreign retirees looking for real business opportunities. The first payment was for a deposit, 100,000 baht. Lolita promised to match his contribution once her loan came through. But the loan, of course, never did. Weeks passed. Every time Peter asked, she smiled apologetically. "Bank slow. I call again tomorrow." In the meantime, new costs appeared: permits, furniture, kitchen equipment, signboards. She always looked stressed but never greedy. And that's what kept Peter trapped. Because she didn't act like a scammer, she acted like a partner under pressure. He started believing they were both victims of bad luck. So he paid more. Another 50,000 baht here, another 80,000 there. Soon, Peter's Australian savings account began to shrink. When his daughter called one morning, asking how he was doing, he said cheerfully, "I'm building something here. You'll see. Maybe you'll visit one day and have a coffee in our shop." She laughed nervously. "Dad, just be careful, okay?" He changed the subject. Love makes men stubborn, especially when they've staked their pride on proving everyone wrong. Lolita, meanwhile, played the part perfectly. She posted photos of progress, new chairs, coffee mugs, a shiny espresso machine. Peter shared them with his expat friends, who nodded politely, some pitying him in silence. But behind the scenes, cracks were forming. Peter started noticing little inconsistencies. Receipts that didn't add up. Her cousin, who handled the lease, always seemed to be out of town. And one evening, while Lolita was in the shower, Peter saw a message pop up on her phone. "You make money from old Farong yet?" His chest tightened. He didn't confront her, not right away. He told himself it must be a joke, a misunderstanding. He'd seen too many Thai dramas to assume the worst. But the seed of doubt had been planted. The following week, Lolita's behavior changed. She became distant, irritable. She stopped cooking, started going out to meet suppliers. Sometimes she didn't come home until midnight. When Peter asked, she snapped, "You don't trust me. You think I lie." He apologized, ashamed. And like always, she used his guilt to reset the balance. That night, she cried in his arms. "You don't know how hard I work for us," she said between sobs. "I do everything. But people talk bad. They jealous. Peter, like a fool in love, held her tighter. I believe you, he whispered. We'll get through this together. A week later, she asked for one final investment. 300,000 baht for the official license to operate the cafe legally. Peter hesitated this time. It was nearly all he had left. Sensing his hesitation, Lalita switched tactics. She started pulling away emotionally. Less affection. Fewer smiles. Then one evening, she packed a small bag and said quietly, Maybe I go home for a few days. You don't trust me anymore. Maybe you need time. That was the moment Peter broke. The thought of losing her, losing the woman who had brought warmth back into his lonely world, terrified him. So he agreed. He transferred the money that night, with shaking hands, whispering to himself, This is the last time. Lalita kissed him gently, eyes soft and tearful. You'll see, she said. Soon everything okay. We open cafe together. You be proud. But that cafe, friends, would never open. And by the time Peter realized the truth, it would already be too late. Because in Thailand, when love turns into business, and business turns into illusion, paradise becomes a prison built from your own hope. When you give someone everything, they start expecting everything. That's how love quietly turns into obligation. And that's exactly what happened to Peter. After the cafe investment, something shifted between them. Lalita no longer acted like a humble woman trying to build a future. She began to live like someone who already had it. The change was subtle at first. She started buying new dresses, saying, For when we open the cafe, must look professional. Then came a new phone. My old one broken, can't call supplier. Peter paid for it without a word. He told himself these were reasonable costs, business expenses, not indulgences. But soon, the line between business and personal began to blur. They started dining out more often. Not at the small noodle shops Peter loved, but at trendy restaurants filled with tourists and influencers. Lalita would order cocktails and imported dishes, taking photos for social media. Peter noticed that the captions began to change. Less about us, more about her life, her success, her independence. He didn't understand the language, but the tone was unmistakable. The woman who once thanked him for a bowl of soup was now posing like a celebrity. Still, he smiled. She deserves it, he told himself. After all she's been through. He didn't realize he was financing not love, but a performance. Then came the next step, the promise of forever. Lalita began dropping hints about marriage. Not a legal one, she said, but a Thai-style ceremony, for family and spirit. It's not expensive, she said one night, her voice soft. Just small blessing, monk, food for relatives. Peter hesitated. But we haven't opened the cafe yet. She looked down, eyes shimmering. You don't want to marry me? And just like that, she played the one card that always works, guilt. Within weeks, they held the ceremony in her village. Simple, beautiful, costly. Peter wore white. Lalita wore gold. Her relatives lined up to pour water over their hands and wish them good fortune. He gave an offering, 100,000 baht in envelopes, placed before the elders. They smiled and nodded approvingly. He didn't know that in Thai tradition, such gifts often go directly to the bride's family. For Peter, it was the happiest day of his life. For Lalita, it was the peak of her performance. After the ceremony, everything changed again. Her mother stopped calling him Luck, son. Her friends began treating him like a wallet with legs. Papa Peter, can borrow motorbike money? Uncle Peter, I need help with phone bill. The requests came like waves, disguised as kindness. Every time he said yes, Lalita smiled and kissed him. Every time he said no, she went quiet, cold, distant. And Peter, desperate not to lose her, always found a way to say yes. But even as he gave more, something inside him began to ache. He noticed her phone always face down, her nights out growing longer. When he asked, she'd say, supplier dinner, or friend birthday. He wanted to believe her. But that gnawing feeling, that quiet whisper that something was wrong, started keeping him awake at night. Then one evening, after she left for a business meeting, Peter decided to walk to the local market to clear his head. That's when he saw her. Across the street, under a glowing sign of a karaoke bar, Lalita was laughing, sitting with another foreigner, maybe in his 30s. Her hand on his arm. Her eyes sparkling with that same warmth Peter once thought was only for him. For a moment, he froze. He couldn't breathe. He didn't confront her, not yet. He just watched, numb, as she clinked glasses with a man, smiled, and leaned in closer. He walked back to the apartment in silence. The city lights blurred through his tears. When Lalita returned past midnight, smelling faintly of whiskey and perfume, she found him sitting on the balcony, waiting. "Where were you?" he asked quietly. She frowned. "Why you ask? You don't trust me." "I saw you," he said softly. "At the karaoke bar." For a long moment, she said nothing. Then she snapped. "You follow me? You crazy old man. I can't even work without you jealous." Her tone sliced through him. Peter tried to explain, but she stormed into the bedroom, slammed the door, and cried loud enough for the neighbors to hear. By morning, she was gone. No message. No call. She returned 2 days later, acting as if nothing had happened. Sweet again, apologetic, telling him she was just helping a friend. And Peter, broken and ashamed, forgave her. Because in his heart, he'd rather believe a comforting lie than face the loneliness he ran away from. He didn't know it then, but he was standing on the edge, one step away from losing everything. Because when love becomes a debt, and debt becomes control, you no longer own your life, someone else does. And soon, Lalita would prove that lesson in the cruelest way possible. Every illusion, no matter how beautiful, eventually begins to crack. And when it does, it never breaks gently, it shatters. For Peter, that shattering began quietly. After the so-called wedding, Lalita's warmth started to fade. The good-morning kisses turned into quick nods. The late-night cuddles became cold shoulders. And the laughter that once filled their apartment was replaced by the constant hum of her phone. She was always busy. Busy with suppliers. Busy with her son's school. Busy with her business partner. Peter wanted to believe her. He wanted to keep seeing the woman he fell in love with, not the stranger who was slowly taking over her body. But denial is a dangerous drug. He told himself she was just stressed. The cafe, the family, the bills. He told himself love needed patience. But deep down, the truth was already whispering, something is wrong. One evening, Peter came home early from a language class. Lalita's motorbike was parked outside, but when he walked in, the apartment was dark. He heard her voice in the bedroom, soft, low, in Thai. And then, a man's laugh. Peter froze. The sound wasn't loud, but it was enough. Enough to confirm every fear he'd been trying to bury. He stepped closer, heart pounding, but as he reached for the door handle, the conversation stopped. A few seconds later, the light turned on, and Lalita opened the door, phone still in her hand. "Peter, you home early." He tried to keep his voice steady. "Who were you talking to?" She blinked. "My cousin." "About the cafe." He hesitated, staring at the phone. "Sounded like a man." She frowned. "You don't trust me again? You think I cheat every time I talk to someone?" Her tone was sharp, defensive, but her eyes darted, just for a second, the way people's do when they've been caught off guard. Peter backed off. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. I worry." She sighed dramatically, tears welling up. "I try my best, but you make me feel like bad woman. Maybe I go stay with my mother few days. Give you space." And again, Peter caved. Because every time she pulled away, his fear of being alone pulled him back in. When she left that night, he sat in silence, staring at their wedding photo. He didn't know it then, but that would be the last time they'd ever live together peacefully. The next day, Lalita returned, smiling, cheerful, carrying gifts. She said she was sorry for being emotional. She said she wanted to start fresh. Peter believed her. But the cracks were spreading fast. Over the next few weeks, money began disappearing. Transfers he didn't remember making. Bills he thought were paid suddenly overdue. When he asked, Lalita would say, "You forget, I already told you." And when he pressed further, she'd get angry, accusing him of being controlling, forgetful, even crazy. Then came the messages. Peter had learned a bit of Thai by then, enough to understand simple sentences. So one night, when Lalita left her phone charging by the bed, curiosity got the better of him. He picked it up, hesitating for a long moment before scrolling. And there it was. Dozens of messages, not with a cousin, not with a business partner, but with foreign men. Some calling her baby. Some asking, "When can I see you again?" And one that froze Peter's blood cold. "Don't worry about the old guy. He's just helping with money." Peter's hands trembled. He set the phone down, breathing shallow, his vision blurring. He wanted to wake her up, scream, demand the truth, but he couldn't, because admitting it out loud would make it real. And if it was real, that meant everything he had, his love, his hope, his new life, was gone. So he said nothing. But something inside him broke that night. The next morning, he made coffee like always, but his hands shook as he poured. Lalita walked in, smiling, wearing the new gold necklace he'd bought her for luck. She kissed his cheek, as if nothing had happened. Peter looked at her for a long moment, trying to find the woman he met at that cafe near the night bazaar, the shy, gentle woman who said she wanted a future. But all he saw now was a stranger wearing her face. He wanted to leave, to pack his bags, withdraw what little money he had left, and disappear. But she still had his accounts, his ATM card, his documents. And that's how these stories always go. By the time the cracks appear, you've already given them the tools to destroy you. A few days later, Peter woke to find the apartment empty. No note. No phone call. Just silence. The only thing missing, besides her, was his bank card and his last 150,000 baht. That was the morning Peter truly woke up. Not from sleep, from a dream that had turned into a nightmare. He sat there, staring at the door she used to walk through, whispering the same question every betrayed man eventually asks himself. Was any of it real? There's a specific kind of silence that comes after betrayal. It's not the quiet of peace, it's the quiet of disbelief. And that's what filled Peter's apartment the morning he realized Lalita was gone. Her clothes were missing. The closet half empty. Her perfume, that sweet, flowery scent that used to linger in every room, now just a faint ghost in the air. But what struck Peter the hardest wasn't the emptiness of the space. It was the emptiness inside him. He walked around the apartment in a daze. The half-drunk glass of water she'd left on the counter. The toothbrush still wet from the night before. The framed photo of their wedding, sitting crooked on the table, mocking him. He checked his wallet. His ATM card was gone. Then his laptop, gone too. The documents he kept in the drawer, his visa papers, pension forms, missing. Panic started to creep in. He opened his banking app, hands shaking. His balance, 0 bitcoins. Every last baht had been drained overnight. Peter's knees gave out. He sat on the floor, staring at the screen, as the truth finally hit him. He hadn't lost a girlfriend. He'd been robbed by the woman he loved. And what hurt the most wasn't the money. It was the meaning. Every "I love you," every kiss, every tear she'd ever shed, all fake. Every memory he thought was real, now tainted with deception. He tried calling her number. Disconnected. He went to her workplace. They told him she'd quit 2 weeks earlier. That's when he realized this had been planned. Every step, every word, every smile, all leading to this moment. Desperate, Peter went to the local police station. The officer behind the counter, polite but expressionless, listened as Peter told his story. When he finished, the man simply nodded and said, "We see this often. You send money voluntary, yes? Then not a crime." Peter's stomach dropped. He tried explaining, the manipulation, the lies, the fake business. But all the officer said was, "If you want, you can file report. But maybe she go back her province." Hard to find. He left the station numb. The world around him moved on, monks chanting, tuk-tuks roaring, tourists laughing, as if nothing had happened. But inside Peter, everything was broken. He spent the next few days wandering through Chiang Mai in a fog, sleeping in cheap goose houses, avoiding the expat bars, too ashamed to face the same men who once warned him. He couldn't go back home, not yet. The thought of seeing his daughter, of admitting how foolish he'd been, was unbearable. So he drifted, quiet, invisible, another foreign face lost in paradise. Until one night, at a dimly lit pub near the Fay Gate, he ran into Mark, another Australian expat he'd met months earlier. Mark saw him sitting alone, hunched over a beer, and recognized that look immediately, the look of a man who'd been taken. He sat beside him and said, "She got you, didn't she?" Peter didn't answer. He just nodded, eyes glassy. Mark sighed. "You're not the first, mate. And you won't be the last." He told Peter stories, names, faces, nationalities. Men from the UK, Germany, Canada. Each one with the same ending: drained bank accounts, fake weddings, broken trust. Some even worse: men who lost houses, pensions, and sanity. It was a network. A quiet, well-practiced system. Girls who played good, not bar girls, not escorts, but the respectable ones, receptionists, small business owners, single mothers. They called it the soft scam. No threats, no theft, just emotional manipulation until the man willingly handed everything over. Mark looked at him and said something Peter would never forget. "They don't steal your money, mate. They steal your story, and make you believe you're the hero until the very end." Those words hit like a hammer. For the first time, Peter stopped thinking of himself as a victim of love and started seeing the reality. He had been conned, not by chance, but by design. A few days later, he decided to visit the place where it all began, that little coffee shop near the night bazaar. It was still there. Same chairs, same smell of roasted beans. But the seat where Lalita once sat was now occupied by another foreigner, laughing with another young Thai woman. Peter watched them for a long moment, not with anger, but with deep, tired sadness. He wanted to walk over, warn the man, tell him to run before it was too late. But he didn't. Because he knew that even if he did, the man wouldn't listen. He would smile, just like Peter once did, and say the same words every lonely foreigner says before the fall. "She's different." That night, Peter packed his bag and checked into a small guest house near Doi Suthep. He withdrew what little cash he had left and bought a bus ticket to Bangkok. From there, he'd fly home to Melbourne, older, poorer, and infinitely wiser. But before leaving, he wrote something in his journal, a note that he'd later share in an online expat forum under the title "The Teacher and the Taxi Girl." "I came to Thailand looking for peace. I found paradise, and it destroyed me. But maybe that's what paradise does when you forget it's not yours to own. If you ever come here searching for love, keep your heart open, but guard your wallet, your pride, and your common sense. Because the smiles in Thailand can heal you, or ruin you." And with that, Peter closed the notebook, boarded the bus, and left Chiang Mai, leaving behind not just a woman, but a version of himself that would never exist again. The worst part about being scammed isn't losing your money, it's losing your reflection. When Peter looked in the mirror after everything, he didn't see a retired teacher anymore. He saw a fool. A man who traded 30 years of discipline for a dream that wasn't real. The weeks after Lalita vanished were a blur. He stayed in Bangkok for a while, moving from one cheap guest house to another, avoiding other foreigners, avoiding mirrors, avoiding anything that reminded him of who he used to be. He'd sit at small food stalls, eating 40-baht noodles, watching couples pass by, old men with young Thai women, and think, do they know what's coming? He didn't feel angry at them. He felt pity. Because he knew, deep down, that most of them weren't chasing love. They were running from loneliness. That's what Thailand does to some men. It makes them feel seen again. It makes them forget that attention can also be a product for sale. Eventually, Peter decided to go home. He sold what was left of his belongings, the scooter, his laptop, a few books, and bought a one-way ticket back to Melbourne. When the plane lifted off, he stared out the window the same way he had 2 years earlier, when he first arrived. Back then, he whispered, maybe this time, I'll get it right. Now, he whispered, maybe next time, I'll finally forgive myself. The return wasn't easy. His daughter picked him up at the airport. She didn't say, I told you so. She just hugged him, long, tight, and full of quiet understanding. That hug broke something inside him. Because it reminded him of what real love feels like, the kind that doesn't need proof or payment. Back home, Peter lived simply. He taught English part-time at a local adult learning center, helped a neighbor with gardening, and started writing again. Not poems this time, but letters. Letters to men who were just like him. He joined online expat communities, sharing his story under the pseudonym Old Teacher 58. His posts didn't sound bitter or vengeful. They sounded like someone who had learned the hard way that kindness, when misplaced, becomes a weapon against yourself. Men from all over the world replied. Some thanked him. Some confessed their own heartbreaks. Some said they were still in relationships they didn't fully trust, but couldn't walk away from. To them, Peter always wrote the same thing. Love isn't wrong. But believing love will fix your loneliness, that's where the danger begins. Over time, he rebuilt his life. He learned to cook again, to wake up without checking his phone, to find peace in silence instead of panic. He even began volunteering at a local charity that helped migrants adjust to life in Australia. He said it was his way of balancing the scales. But Thailand never really left him. Some nights, he'd dream of the sound of temple bells at sunrise, of the warm smell of street food, of Lalita's laughter echoing through a Chiang Mai alley. And even in those dreams, he couldn't hate her. Because part of him still believed she wasn't born cruel. She was just a product of survival in a country where beauty can become currency. That's the thing about heartbreak in paradise. It doesn't just destroy you, it humbles you. It teaches you what happens when longing outweighs logic. Years later, when a journalist from an expat magazine reached out to interview him about his story, Peter agreed, on one condition. That it wouldn't be written as a tragedy, but as a warning. In the final paragraph of that article, Peter's words were simple but powerful. Thailand didn't ruin my life. It exposed what was already broken. My loneliness, my pride, my need to be wanted. Lalita just gave those weaknesses a beautiful face. And for that, I can't hate her. But I can promise you this, if you ever come here looking for love, make sure you're not trying to buy peace with your own blindness. Those words went viral among expat groups. Not because they were dramatic, but because they were true. Peter never returned to Thailand. But sometimes, he'd watch YouTube videos from Chiang Mai, the same streets, the same markets, the same sunsets. He'd smile softly and whisper, "Thank you for the lesson." Because in the end, that's what survival really is. Not forgetting what broke you, but learning to live wiser because of it. 600 words. Fellow travelers, if you've stayed with me through Peter's story, thank you. Because this isn't just one man's heartbreak. It's a mirror held up to hundreds of others who come to Thailand chasing a second chance at love, only to lose far more than money. Peter's story reminds us of something most people don't want to hear. Paradise has a price. And sometimes, the price is your dignity. Friends, if Peter's story hit close to home, share this video. Someone out there might be walking into the same trap right now. Don't let their lesson come too late. Thumbs up like this video, speech balloon leave a comment with your thoughts. And bell subscribe to Expat Stories Thailand, Romance Scams and Betrayal. Because sometimes, the most romantic story you can tell is the truth.